Hi, I'm Susanna Kalcic, and you're listening to Life in Practice podcast. I'm curious about the big questions in life and how we can experience more meaning and fulfillment every day. Join me as my guests share their challenges, successes, and what it means to put our purpose, our values, and our lives in practice. Hello and welcome to Life in Practice podcast. This is your host, Susanna, and today my guest is Stephen Karbaron. He's a certified master goal mapping coach and a business consultant. Great to have you on board, Stephen.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, so Stephen and I connected over our shared passion for personal development. We've both been to Tony Robbins and Yes Group. So that's really been a great way to connect with you, Stephen. So I'd like to start there. How did your journey start into personal development?
Well, it was actually quite a long time ago. It was 1981, and there was a group called Exegesis in the UK. It was part of what was then EST, and now it's better known as Landmark Forum. And in 1981, we hadn't heard a lot about NLP and the usage of this sort of technology, let's say brain technology, but they were using it quite deliberately, and it was actually quite a cult. So there was this whole furore in the newspapers. It even went to Parliament that they were discussing about whether this cult was should be allowed, and it was looking to be banned. And so, of course, me being a bright young upstart, said I must go and find out what this is all about. And that was my first experience of personal development, and it was amazing. It really did sort of set me up for the rest of my life. So that's where it all started.
Yeah, and so what was going on with you at that time that you felt that, okay, I need to go down this personal development route? Were you facing any challenges, or like what was going on in your life at the time?
I suppose when I was 22 years old and I was facing the usual
Mm.
challenges of a young man coming into his prime. I'd sort of moved out from home. I was working. I didn't have any challenges other than the usual challenges that, you know, sort of that post-adolescent challenges of being a young man setting out in the world and just looking to see what was going on. So myself and my flatmate at the time, we both sort of discovered this course, or whatever you want to call it, and decided that it would be, actually we thought it would be good fun to go along and see what it was all about. So it was just really sort of better than going out for a night out at the pub.
Yeah, no, it's really good that you found this whenever you were that young. It must have really set you up very nicely. And
Yeah.
what were some of the things that you experienced then, or that you learned, or that you felt kind of you had a change around?
Well, certainly I learnt that most things that go on are a controlled illusion. So this was something that we went through. We went through various processes during that seminar that taught us that, you know, how easy it is, how easily we're misled, and how easily, when lots of stories are posted, as I mentioned, it was in the newspapers about it and everything. So they used that actually to do a process on us where we were quite well fooled to think that we had police outside and that we were being raided, and it seemed very obvious that it could happen. And I think it's made me very aware to question every experience that I have in life and everything that goes on, and be aware that reality sometimes is not reality.
Or I mean, do you mean like how reality is presented to us, maybe through the mass media? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, so through the mass media, and how our perception is. So we, you know, our perception can be distorted. We see this a lot in magic. I also loved magic when I was a kid. So we see this a lot in magic. It's all smoke and mirrors. And if you look at magic, we all love magic. We love to go and see magic. We all love that illusion, and you know, how the magician makes us think one thing and then something else happens. We all love to be tricked. No, we don't. But actually, that's what's going on. And when someone does an illusion on us, that's exactly what they're doing. They're tricking us. They're making us think one thing and filling us with information that makes us think one way while they're doing something else behind our backs. So, yeah, we can look at that. And that goes a lot in our lives. So whether it's mainstream media, it can be the education system, it can be lots of things that fill us with a certain level of programming and certain ideas, and then those become realities. Now, this actually sort of leads nicely into the goal mapping because it uses the same techniques. We use NLP there as well, where we can actually make our brain think one thing and then it becomes a reality. So we'll get into that a little bit more,
Mm.
talk a little
Yeah,
bit more.
yeah. Yeah,
But
I suppose, yeah, it's a tool that can be used, as you say, for positive or even negative ways. So,
yeah,
yeah.
so I'm not saying it's negative or positive. It's just a
Yeah,
tool.
yeah.
It's an illusion, and when we embrace that, we can
Mm.
actually understand and be aware that we can control that as well as other
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah. Interesting. I can't wait to dive in a bit deeper into that. So, talking about goals, then, how do we know, or like how can we choose goals? Like, what is a good way of choosing a goal? Because I think some people think, okay, they might have like a wish or a dream, or like, but what is an actual goal, if you know what I mean?
Okay, so I would say that you summed it up nicely there because a goal really is a wish or a dream, and I try and take it dream because when you just wish for something, it's usually something fairly ordinary. If you dream bigger. And
Mhm.
actually, when I do goal mapping with people, I usually like to get them almost into a meditative state. So getting them very mindful because then they release some of the barriers that happen in normal life and they get into a state where they can really dream big. So I would say a goal should be something that's achievable,
Mhm.
but maybe is going to test you and push you to your limits to achieve it, because then it's something that you really have to make happen, and you have to use everything in your power to make it happen. A goal shouldn't be something like, I'm going to have a cup of coffee every morning. It's not much of a goal, but set yourself a goal that I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock every morning and go for a 5 kilometer run, and do it every single day. Now that's something that, yes, of course you can do it. We can all do that. Or let's not say all, but most of us can do that. There might be some that are impaired or have problems that they can't, but generally you can do that. You can get up at 6 o'clock, but you have to really work on yourself to do it and make it happen every day. But let me tell you, if you did it every day, after a period of time, it will become a habit, and you'd be waking up at 20 to 6 and getting up and having your shower and getting ready and getting your trainers on, and you'd be out there doing your run without thinking about it. It would not be difficult anymore after the first maybe few months.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's always like the hardest thing is always that first step, I think. And then once you
Yeah.
get the momentum going, it gets much easier. But I want to ask you that, how can we get clear on the goals that we have? Because I know um goals, or like dreams, sorry, can feel quite vague sometimes. Like, it could be a dream like, oh, I want to get healthy, or I want to be rich, or I want to find love, or I want to, it can feel quite vague. How do we actually start to break this down and make it more specific?
Okay, so it's always good to put numbers, put levels, or put something on there so that for example, if you want to meet the man of your dreams, you're probably going to need to be a little bit more specific and really think about it. So when I do goal mapping, I like to get people to really grind down and imagine things, but not just imagine, oh, I want a new boyfriend, or I want a new house, or I want a new job, but start thinking about and seeing that house, for example. So if it's a new house, see the house, but don't just see the outside of the house. Open the door, go inside, Have a look around, see your favorite chair in the house. Where are you going to sit? Um, Imagine yourself being in there. What are the colors? How's it decorated? When you start putting color into your dreams, it adds another level to it. And then maybe smell something. Do you like to burn incense, or smell what's in there? How do you feel? Who's in there? When you start doing all that and really adding detail to your goal, it becomes much easier for the brain to start creating and making it happen. If you just have a new house, it could be any house, and maybe it will not be the house of your dreams. So be very specific with your goals.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really nice. It's a really great idea to kind of really feel your dreams with all of your five um senses. I think that's really important. Um and so with goals, for example, actually I think what I'll ask first is, because I think this is something that you helped me with whenever we did the goal mapping process, is like you really helped me to kind of push beyond my comfort zone. So how do we know whenever the kind of dreams that we're or goals that we're setting for ourselves, that they're kind of that they are kind of within our um uh limited mind? How can we know, okay, actually, you know what, I can just stretch just a little bit beyond that?
Well, and you and I both been to Tony Robbins, and he talks a lot about our
Mm.
limiting beliefs. And it's our limiting beliefs. When we believe something can't be achieved, it tends not to be achieved. In fact, Henry Ford had a great saying: whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
Mm.
How our mind works is it's what you believe is going to happen, what you believe is achievable, is what becomes achievable. So what I would always do is push people to set their goals higher than their expectations, but within the capabilities. So look at what someone else, a peer or somebody else has achieved, and say, well, if they can achieve it, why can't you? This is the truth of the matter, because we're all individuals. And okay, some people will say, well, they had a head start in some reason, but actually, if you look at most people who really achieve greatness, they quite often didn't have a head start. Take Oprah Winfrey. She's a great example that we
Yeah,
all
she's
know.
amazing.
She had an awful start in life, and look at where she is now. So we have to look at great examples like her, and there's loads of other examples around, and say, well, they set their dreams super high, and maybe they kept on building that ladder. But it's by doing that and setting your goals and setting the bar high that you actually achieve more than you can. If you set the bar, if you set a goal at something, as I said earlier, that's very achievable, yes, you'll get it, but there'll be no real achievement in doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's also, I think, isn't like there's a saying as well, like you can reach for the stars, but if you land on the moon, like that's still pretty good. Whereas
Absolutely.
had you only aimed for the moon, maybe you would have only gotten as far as the clouds or something. So yeah.
Absolutely. So the higher you set the bar, the more chance you're going to push yourself that little bit further. And I've always had a great thing that I've thought about even before I discovered goal mapping. But I always said that I always set my pedestal very high. I always set my goals very high, because actually I'm then more scared to fall down and miss them. So I really make every effort, and you really push yourself to get there. And then if you fall short slightly, as you say, you've achieved something far greater than if you had a very low expectation in the first place.
Exactly. So then, what are the attributes of a good goal? Like we know kind of um, uh, structures like the SMART goals, for example. Is that something that you would recommend, like in how we go about in like choosing and setting goals?
Well, when we set a goal in a goal map, and we'll get on to a little bit more about how it works, but one of the real rules about the affirmation part of a goal, the written part of the goal, is the 3 Ps. So you have personal, present, and positive.
Mhm.
This, I always tell people to set your goals in this way. When you set them with the 3 Ps, so the reason why it's done that way, we make them personal. The reason it's personal is you cannot set a goal for somebody else.
Mm.
You can set a goal for yourself to help somebody else. For example, I've got a 10-year-old son. He always appears on my goal maps, but I never have a goal for him. My goals are always that I will give him the best opportunities to have a great life, or things like this. So they're always goals that I have for myself to help him have a better life, but I can't set a goal for him. We
Mm.
set them in the present. The reason we do this is that when we tell our subconscious that something is going to happen, when we get to the time that it's going to happen, the message that the subconscious is getting is it's going to happen. So for example, if you want to give up smoking and that's a goal of yours, and you say, okay, I want to give up smoking by the 31st of December, as so many people do, their brain's saying, okay, I want to give up smoking by the 31st. I've got a date on it, which is great. But when you get to 31st of December, what's the message the brain has? I want to give up smoking. So if that's the message the brain's got, it's certainly not going to have given up smoking, because it still
Mm.
wants to be giving it up. Whereas if you say, I'm a non-smoker, so you
Mm.
make it into a very positive statement that is present there, that I've given up, I do not smoke. Then the brain has that message and it has to make that the achievement.
Mm.
And the reason we do, so you've got the personal, you've got the present, and always make it positive, because by creating positivity around your goals, you create a much better neural pathway by having positive thoughts. And when we have positive thoughts, we allow that pathway to continue by producing actually serotonin, and different endorphins that help the brain to open up and continue that thought. When it's a negative thought, we produce a thing called cortisol, which tends to be what we have in the fight or flight mode. And this blocks our thinking. It blocks the opinion, the way that the neural pathways are formed, and therefore we don't get such a great result.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really powerful. The three P's. It's a nice way to remember it as well. Um, and also, I want to talk about what it like about the drivers behind goals, because obviously we can set a goal, but I think we need to know like why, or we need to have that real drive to begin with.
Absolutely. And everything is driven by emotions.
Mm.
So actually, if you think about everything you want, so that house you want, it's because it's going to be comfortable to live in. It's going to make you feel happy.
Mm.
Most things, if we really keep asking the question, why? So this is something else that I've learned, that if you want something, ask yourself why you want it. And when you answer that question, then ask yourself, why that answer? And then when you get that answer, ask again, and keep drilling down until you get to the bottom. And when you get to the bottom, you'll usually find it's an emotion that it's all about.
Mm.
Emotions are what drive most of our actions. So if we use this and we use our emotions, and in the goal mapping, we actually have 3 goals that are built around our emotions. That's the why. And when we do that, we tend to have a much stronger opportunity to create what we want, because it's about the emotion, and we're telling the brain what it's going to receive. We're telling it the reward it's going to get.
Absolutely. So I want to now to talk about how has goal mapping helped you, like because I know you've got some great experiences um, and and stories to share.
Yeah, so my first ever goal map was one that I never realized was a goal map. So back in 2004, I went to Tony Robbins, a UPW, Unleash the Power Within, which is a 4-day event that's amazing. I know you've been there as well,
It's
so you know
absolutely
about it.
amazing.
Anyone
Yeah.
else in your audience who's been will know what we're talking about. If they haven't been, it's very, very powerful. And when I went on this back in 2004, I was at a great point of change in my life, and I was looking for to leave the UK. I was looking to change everything about where I was in my life. So it was a great opportunity, and Tony Robbins was a great catalyst for that to happen. And one of the things I did at UPW is I signed up for the Mastery University, which is 3 further events. one of them being Date with Destiny. And if anyone's going to do Tony Robbins events, I really strongly recommend go on Date with Destiny. It's so powerful. And at Date with Destiny, I went there, it was 2006 actually. I went on Date with Destiny and we did what was a goal map, but I didn't know it was a goal map. So it was this map with pictures and words, and I'll explain a bit more about that later, but it was with pictures and words. It was a 10-year plan. Where was I going to be in 10 years in my life? And I put lots of material things on it, and it was great. And I had this great goal map, and then when I took it home, I actually had to get rid of it. I was living in Russia. I'll go into that a little bit more as well. But I was in a very toxic relationship at the time. And of course, the girl that I was with was not in my 10-year plan. And I realized that if she got hold of the goal map, she would be a little bit disappointed, to say the least. So, but I still always kept it in my head. So I always had this, and I'd been checking it through before I'd gone home. So I always had it in my head. And as I say, it was very material. It was about living by the sea. It was having a nice house, having a nice car, family, all these, the trappings that we all want and are looking for. So nothing wrong with it, but they were all material. And see, it was 10 years later in 2016 in a UPW event, again with Tony Robbins and a big group of Russians, because when I lived in Russia, I set up with a couple of friends, a thing called Meet Partners, to bring Russians to Tony Robbins events in Europe. And I left because I moved to Spain, and I set myself up with my family in Spain. I had a young child, as I mentioned, Danny, and we came to live in Spain. And I was asked at this UPW event in 2016 to relate an experience from my Tony Robbins days, something about Tony Robbins that had resonated with me. And I thought about it, and I realized that I'd done this goal map, or this goal setting that I'd done 10 years earlier. And I'd realized that actually that year in 2016, I'd moved into that house by the sea. I lived just outside of Barcelona. I had the nice trappings, the car, the wife, the child, all the things that I put down there. And 10 years later, almost to the day, I had everything. So I wanted to research and find out a little bit more about what this tool was. And that was really my first experience of goal mapping. And from then, through the other link that you mentioned, which was the Yes Group in London, which Carl Pearsall runs, a very, very good friend of mine. And this guy, Brian Mayne, was going there, and he was talking about goal mapping, and Carl introduced me to him. He's a lovely guy, Brian, and we became very good friends. And he was at a few events that I flew in from Spain to go to, and we got chatting about the goal mapping, and he told me about Tony Robbins. And I said to him, I must have done this. This was what I did back at Date with Destiny. And sure enough, it was. So he then offered to, invited me to one of his seminars that he did, an all-day seminar in Heathrow. So I flew over with Danny to do that. It was amazing. My little boy at the time, he was 8, and he loved it as well. And I discussed with Brian, and I said, I want to learn about this tool, and I want to share it because it seems really powerful. It worked for me once, and now I've understood a bit more about the science behind it. And he took me under his wing. We became great friends, and he became my mentor and teacher and coached me from all the way through to becoming a master coach of goal mapping.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's how I really got into goal mapping.
Yeah. So then tell me more about the actual goal mapping process itself, because you said about you understood how the science worked around it. So can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes. So there's several things. I think a couple of the most important things. One is the fact that a goal map is made up of pictures and words. And the reason for this is if I say to your audience, because we've done this before, but if I say to your audience, think of the word beach. Now, in my experience, only once has it not been the case, so sometimes it doesn't happen, but in my experience, everyone will sit there and think of sand, sea, palm trees, relaxation, all the lovely things that a beach means to them. And they'll see a picture of their favorite beach, maybe, or their dream beach, the one that they've never been to yet, but they want to go to. The truth is, when you mention a word or a phrase, the brain usually thinks in pictures. It doesn't think of the word BEACH. You don't see those
Yeah.
letters in front of you. But then if you think of the picture that you thought of, so that exotic tropical island with the palm trees and or something else, it quite often can mean holiday or relaxation, or it can mean something else. But when you take that picture and you put the word beach underneath it, then it's exactly, you know exactly what it means. All the ambiguity goes away. So this is the beauty of goal mapping. This works in the same way. So we're using our left side of the brain and our right side of the brain, which is the logic and the creative side, the two different sides. It's not quite as straightforward as that. I have been pulled up by a neuroscientist who told me, well, you know, there's a little bit more to it than that. I agree with that. But let's make it simple, because we're not all neuroscientists. So it's best to just sort of go by the sort of old-fashioned way of thinking, with the two different sides, so or two elements of the brain that think in slightly different ways. So when you have the logic side, that is affected by your affirmations and words, and then you have your creative side affected by the pictures, and bring those two together, the ambiguity goes and your goal becomes very, very clear to the brain.
Mm.
Other areas of the science, as I mentioned about the neural pathways, the positive thinking, this is important, because when we actually set up a goal, it starts out, like everything, as a thought. Actually, everything in life starts out as a thought. It's something that pops into our head. Now, that could be brought on by outside influences, but we think about things before anything else. We see something, we think, what is it? Or we manifest something because we've thought about it. And then that thought becomes an idea, and we start to process it. And what happens is that the brain, the neurons start to process this, and we form neural pathways by actually creating that thought. And when we regularly think about that same thought, this continues to build and build and build until we have a really strong neural pathway. And eventually that thought becomes an idea. From an idea, it becomes a belief. And when we really believe something, it can then become a reality. A good analogy about this is, if you go to a field and the grass is up to here, you can't see across the field, but you know you've got to get across the other side. You sort of wade your way through. It's only grass. You wade your way through and you walk through it and you get to the other side. Tomorrow you come back to that same field and you find where you went through, and the sort of some of the grass has popped back up, but you can sort of work your way back through. And if you keep walking that same pathway every day for a period of time, eventually the grass stays down. And actually, if you've walked ever in the country and you look where people walk, the grass stops growing there. It actually stops growing and that pathway stays. And it's very similar how it works in the brain. When we form these neural pathways, the stronger they become, the more we focus on them on a daily basis, the more chance that they're going to become beliefs, and therefore more likely that they're going to happen.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really powerful way to describe it. And yeah, I think it's like, I think what you're saying, it sounds like it's about really how to create a habit.
Yeah, absolutely that. So, and habits, of course, create realities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's really cool. So then talk me through a bit about the actual goal map itself, because I know, you know, because I've gone through the experience with you. So at the very center of the map is kind of like your main goal, and then it's like it branches out. So talk to me a bit about what each of those branches represent.
Okay, so basically, there's 7 steps to building a goal map.
Mhm.
We start off by dreaming. You know, dream big. Think about what you really want. Get a central goal, like your main goal, and put that in with the affirmation and pick, you know, so that you know what your, and it can be around business, so it could be your business goal. It can be around life. It can be your life goals. It can be a short-term goal. For example, if you do want to, as I mentioned before, give up smoking, that can be your goal. That, you know, your goal can be to give up smoking. And once you've got your central goal, once you know what your main focus is, You then build around it, 4 key goals that sort of help it along, that are going to, where if they happen, they're going to be working hand in hand with the main goal, and they're going to support the main goal. Then we have 3 further goals across the top. And these 3 goals that go across the top, these are our emotional goals. This is the why. So something, I mean, I've got a goal map here, and we can see sort of the setup here of it. If I get a bit further back that way. So yeah, so you've got your central goal here, you've got your 4 goals around the outside of it, and then across the top, you've got 3 goals, which are the emotional goals. And then down the sides, we have on one side, we have our how. So these are the things, the steps that we're going to take straight away, our action goals. What are we going to do from today to start making things happen? And then on the other side, these are who is going to help us, or what group is going to help us, or things that are going to help the actions start taking place. Then in the middle here, this section here, we have our dates. So we have a start date at the bottom, and we have an end date at the top. And the reason we have an end date is very important, because a goal without a date is just an idea.
Yeah.
It can just keep going. So we need to set a date, so that, and even if we miss that date, it's not that important. Don't get too hung up on it, but have a date there so that we've got a target to aim for. And you can probably see in the middle, I've signed it. And this is also really important. We sign our goals because that makes a commitment. The brain recognizes that when we sign something, it's a commitment to it happening. And this has been for many, many years, this has been the case. So committing means that you're telling your brain this has to happen, and therefore the brain starts making it work. And it's incredible how powerful our brain is. So this goes back to 1981. As I said, when we're given stories, when we're told stories by others, the brain starts believing in them and they become reality. So to take control of your life, if you start telling yourself the stories, and you tell yourself the illusions that you want, which the goals are, because at the beginning, they're just an illusion. They're just a thought. They're just a dream. It's just an illusion, but they become a reality, just like everything else does, because you convince the brain, that your subconscious, that this is going to happen, and that it's happened, and therefore the subconscious goes out there, and whether you believe in the law of attraction, or whether you believe in logical steps, that you're just aware of something, you become more aware of opportunities because you're thinking about it. It all works in the same way. It brings you to succeed in your goals.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's so great how, as you say, it's working with the pictures and the words, because when you can see it, as well as like having the positive statement, that really makes it a lot more powerful than just having like when you just write down things. Oh yeah, I'd like to do this, or I want to do that, or I want to achieve this. And also what you said is, so when you write that statement, it needs to be in the present moment, like as if it's already happened, right?
Yeah. So a great example from this goal map that I just showed you. Let's go with the bottom one. So this, I'll tell you the dates because it's not so easy to see. So it was on March 24th, 2020. Now, everyone sort of remembers March 2020.
Yeah.
All the wrong reasons. We don't really want to go back there, but I'm going to take you back there because it was the start of COVID. It was when things just started locking down. I live in Spain, as I say, and we went through a pretty harsh lockdown for the first 3 months. We were trapped in our houses. We weren't allowed out for almost only to go shopping for food, and that was about it. And I'm a Toastmaster, and if you look here, I'll read it out for you. I am an online presenter. That was one of my goals, and I said that Toastmasters would help me. And the reason for that is we just had our first online Zoom meeting with Toastmasters, and I hadn't done any presentations online at all. But I made this a goal. It sort of seemed to me like, well, this will be interesting to see, and it was one of the goals. I then went on to become president of my Toastmasters Club in July, something that I hadn't even thought about beforehand.
Mm.
And I continue to use Toastmasters as something that improved my online speaking. And now I've appeared on quite a number of podcasts. I've been in several talks on some big festivals, and even was with a guy called Krishnaji, which is part of the ECAM group,
Yeah.
One World. And I was invited to speak on one of his not a podcast, it was a YouTube event, and there was we've had over 17,000 views of that event. So yes,
Amazing.
I'd say that, you know, from never having done an online presentation before I put it in my um, goal map, that really did come to fruition, and it's continuing that way. So you know,
Mm.
we've been sort of forced down this road, but certainly on the 24th of March, when I put that down there, I could never have predicted. We were talking about 3 weeks inside, and you know, we'd never have
Yeah.
predicted where we were going to be. And maybe my goal map was part of the reason why this all happened. Who knows? But
Yeah. No, that's really that's so cool. All the things that you've done. And so did you because one thing which you said whenever we went through the process about the 30-day challenge, about how important it is to each day have a look at the goal map, say the statements, have a look at the pictures as well.
yeah, so this is part of the process. So what we do
Mm.
is I do it in the mornings, but I actually keep them around me in the office. So I've got my goal maps around here with me. So, but every morning it's a little ritual. Actually, I've had several rituals in the morning. It's always good to have your morning rituals, and one of them is that I go to the mirror. I have a smile at myself. I tell myself what a great day I'm going to have, say a few nice things about myself, smile, do all of these things. And then I pick up my goal map and I go through all of the goals from start to finish, and I read out the affirmations loud. Don't just read them in your head, read them out loud. It gives a better message to the brain. Look at the pictures, and of course the pictures, and we'll talk a little bit about how we put this all together later, but look at the pictures as well. And this gives a real resonates with the brain, and you start to pick this up and it goes into the subconscious. So you set out every day for 30 days doing this, a minimum of 30 days. I still, actually, this one finished on 31st of December, but I still use it, even though quite most of the goals I've achieved.
Mm.
But there's a few that I'm still working on, and I want them to grow, and they've followed up in my new goal maps that I've done. But what you do is, if you repeat it for a minimum of 30 days, you really build this pathway, as I mentioned about going across the field. If you walk across the field 30 days running, by the end of those 30 days, you'll have a pathway. It's the same thing with the neural pathways, that if you
Mm.
keep repeating them, as you mentioned, until they become a habit, until the brain really starts going and saying every time you wake up, it's already got it
Mhm.
subconsciously, it's doing everything to make those goals happen.
Mm. Yeah. So how about, like, when it comes to the time where, okay, we have our goals, and usually at the at the start we're going for it, but then challenges come along, problems, things get tough, and that's the point where, like, oh, should I keep going, should I give up, should oh what should I do? So what do you say is, like, what's a good thing to do whenever we do have those challenges when we're trying to pursue our goals?
I think what we have to realize, and we're certainly in probably the most challenging time in generations at this moment. You know, this is
Mm.
challenging the world where we are. And it's very important to bear in mind that Brian, who invented goal mapping, he comes from the Isle of Wight, or he
Mm.
lives on the Isle of Wight. So he's very into sailing and into all things around sailing. So he has a great analogy around sailing, that if you're on a sailboat and you're caught in a storm, if you just let go of the rudder and you let go of the sails and just say, okay, you're going to end off so off course that, and really lost. Whereas if you tack against the storm and you shift the sail, and we've seen, people can do this, you can still set your course, know where you're going to, and aim for that course as best you can. And it might be difficult and you might go off course, but then you just readjust yourself and, get back as close to being on course as you can all the time, because eventually you'll come out of the storm.
Mm.
Most people do. It's similarly to the storm we're in at the moment. We
Yeah.
know that this will, one way or another, it's going to come. We're going to come to the end of this period, and something will be happening. Well, I'm a great believer that it's not going to be going back to how everything was, because we've already shifted. And I'm a great believer that if the shift is right, and if we all believe, and if we all set great goals, we're going to find that we're going to be in a much better place when we do come out of this. So,
Mm.
we set course for that dream island with a beautiful beach, and then we hit a storm on the way. But if we stay focused on getting to that beach, we will get there. So it's very, very important. And don't beat yourself up about not getting to your goals. If you, as we said before, if you set the bar very high and you get close to it, you mentioned it, a great analogy. If you aim for the stars and you land on the moon, wow,
Mm.
you've got to the moon. The
Yeah.
person who said, I'm going to get to the top of that building, and they didn't even get to the third floor. They're the ones who never got anywhere, really. So,
Yeah.
set your goals high. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get there, or if you think you're going off course. Just refocus. If you finished your 30 days of doing your goal map, and then you feel like you're going off course, get the goal map out, read it again, go through it again, do another
Mm.
30-day period to
Yeah.
give it some power again, and reestablish those goals in the
Yeah.
subconscious.
And also, do you think that sometimes when we set goals and we start down that path of them, do you think that we can also realize, actually, this is not what I actually want? This is what I thought I wanted, but when I'm actually doing it, or when I'm in the process of it, this isn't actually it. Does that
Yeah.
happen with people? Like, have you had that experience, or even yourself?
Absolutely. So, sometimes we think one thing, and then life changes. That lots of things change. So again, be prepared to be flexible.
Mm.
And maybe when you start down the road for something, and the great thing about goal mapping, it was actually originally designed for children. So
Mm.
Brian even wrote a book called Sam the Magic Genie, this book, and it's all about,
Nice.
it relates nicely because kids understand the stories of genies. Your wish is my command.
Mm.
Think of your subconscious in a similar way. Your wish is my command. The subconscious can't think for itself, or decide for itself. It can only be commanded by you, and when you give it information, and then it will go out and do whatever you're asking it to do.
Mm.
So it then moved on into business, and businesses, even companies like Microsoft, picked up goal mapping, and so Brian switched
Amazing.
and started going to these big companies, and it became a corporate thing. And then he realized, due to, unfortunately, not super bad health, but he was traveling too much, and it was really getting to him, and his doctors advised him to cut down on his travel. So he decided to go against what he'd always wanted, because it was all about drawing the pictures before. So the pictures were hand drawn, and you can still download the templates to do it that way. But he went online, and he built an online system about 3 years ago, and developed it, and took it further. As he said, that was an inspiration that he had before COVID that actually turned out, who knows why, but to be perfect, because he was one step ahead of the game, where everyone was suddenly last March trying to change their course and go online. He already had this base there. So the
Mm.
beauty of it being online is, when you go online and you create your goal map online, you can go back and change it. So you
Mm-hmm.
can go into the system, and if a goal's not really, if you've started down a track and you say, you know what, this isn't really what I wanted, I thought it was before, but it's not, or things have changed in my life, so therefore my goals have changed, and
Mm-hmm.
what I want in life has changed. You can change the goals, and you can change your goal map. It's very easy to do on the online system. You can just go in and change them,
Mm-hmm.
edit the words, change the pictures. It's really simple system to use.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is. It really is. And I want to ask you, like, what do you think are the most common um, m- mistakes that people make when they set goals?
I think a few of them I've covered. So I
Mm.
think people set goals for other people.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
This is quite a common one. So, they'll, it might be all around love, and they might set a goal for someone they want to fall in love with them. And, it's going to be, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It might be that they set goals, as I said as well, not in the present. So they set goals that they want something. So when you tell your brain you want something, when you get to the end of the goal, you still want it, because that's the goal that you set yourself. So these are, so quite a few of these things. Forgetting the 3 Ps is a common mistake, and this is why a lot of goals don't work out, because we don't use that present personal um, level, and we don't put it in the positive. So, and also being negative about things. So don't sort of say, I'm going to lose, if you want to diet, if you want to lose some weight, don't say I'm going to lose 5 pounds. Think of what your weight will be when you're 5 pounds lighter, and say,
Mm.
I'm going to be that weight. So always keep
Yeah.
it positive. So all these things, so they're the common mistakes that a lot of people make when they're setting goals, is that they don't put them in that way that the brain really understands and sets out to make them happen. And quite often, if you really look at your goals, and again, putting pictures and words, and another thing that really falls down is if you set a goal and it's just an affirmation, and you don't really bring that into, read it enough times. I mean, people have these goal setting systems where you have to read the affirmation 50 times every morning, and therefore after a couple of mornings you get a bit fed up with it. So this is why
Mm.
this is nice and simple. You just look through it. It takes no more than 5 minutes
Yeah.
to really focus on your goal map, and then you're set for the day.
Mm. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, our time is going quite quickly. Yeah, so we could. It's a great topic to talk about. And so just to start wrapping up, I want to ask you the same questions that I ask each guest. And the first one is, what are the key practices that have helped you to overcome challenges and attain success? Like, what are the things that you've had to do consistently throughout your life?
I think it comes down to some of the things that I've already said. So, waking up in the morning, and actually also going to bed at night with a very clear head. So
Okay.
something that I've started doing very recently is meditation, but it has, that's a great way of getting this clarity. But I've always had this very positive outlook, and been very clear with myself, even in bad times. Because I'm not saying I've never had bad times. Yeah, we
Yeah.
all have bad days. We all have bad situations and things that aren't working out, but don't focus on them. So, get through it. Focus. I've always been focused on getting success, and telling myself that that's achievable. So do that in the morning. Tell yourself how great you are. Tell yourself, when you go to bed at night, focus on the things that happened that were good in the day, because there's good and bad in every day. But if you focus, most people, unfortunately, they go to bed stressed out. They're thinking about, they're concerned about how they're going to deal with this problem that they had. How are they going to sort something out? They've got financial problems. They've got relationship problems, they've got business problems, they've got things like this, and that's what they're focused on when they go to sleep. Now, of course, then you go to sleep, you wake up in the morning with all these problems still there, and you continue. Whereas if you go to sleep and think about, try and clear that from your head, and meditation is a great way to do it. But
Mm.
even if you don't meditate, think about, just focus on the nice things that have happened. Think
Mm-hmm.
about, even if it was just having a nice meal, or if it was someone said something nice to you, or whatever it was, and go out and do that the next day. Go and smile at someone when we don't have to wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Go and, say something nice to people. Do something for someone. That old thing, the whole adage of help an old lady across the road if she wants to get across the road,
Yeah.
or doing something for somebody else, is a great way to make yourself feel good. And then when you go to bed, think about that thing that you did for something else, and feel good about it, and go to
Mm-hmm.
sleep feeling good, wake up feeling good. Give yourself affirmations in the morning to do, even if you haven't got your goal map, or if you're not, it doesn't really have to be a goal map. It just affirm to yourself that life is good, and
Mm.
think about the things that you have got rather than things that you haven't got.
Yeah, yeah, that's really powerful. And so, what do you value most, and how do you put it into practice?
I suppose I value most my ability to be positive about most things. So, and I've a quick little story, but a few years ago, 2016, actually the same year that I realised that my goal maps come to fruition. That
Mm,
summer, I went with a friend. He invited me down to the south of France, and we went. He had a yacht. And we went out on his yacht for a few days on a sort of a business get together to talk about certain things, and we had an amazing time. And we were sailing along. Actually, going from it sounds so amazing, sounds so posh, from Monte Carlo to Saint Tropez for lunch.
mm.
And I got up on the back of the boat for a silly reason. To won't go into it, but I fell off the boat in the middle of the
Wow.
Mediterranean, and I didn't have a life jacket on. I was just in my swim trunks, and it was just me and my friend on the boat. And he went off over the horizon, and I realized that I was far too far out to swim to the shore. And at first I sort of had a bit of a panic and a bit of a thought of some of the negative thoughts that, uh, and there were a few profanities went through my head, and I probably even
Yeah.
said quite loudly. I thought about, are there sharks in the Mediterranean? All these things, So you have these negative thoughts, and then I
Mm.
used my power of positivity. Great mentor Tony Robbins also has uh, helped me with this a lot, but it was already there in my life anyway. And I thought about positive outcomes. I started focusing on the fact that this wasn't going to be the end, because it wasn't my time, and he would come back. So I needed to just stay very calm and conserve my energy and stay afloat. That was the key point, because he would come back at some point. And then looking around for other opportunities and other things to do. So that power of positivity, my positive thought, probably saved my life, almost certainly saved my life. And
Mm.
when he did actually come back eventually, it was probably about 10, 15 minutes later, it felt like a lifetime. It was a
Yeah.
lifetime, because I could have died there and then.
Yeah.
Um, but when he came back and I got back on the boat, and we actually did get to our lunch in Saint Tropez, and we were sitting there, and actually it didn't seem that big a deal to me. But
Mm.
we were talking about it over lunch, and there was two Scottish couples on the next table, and they just sort of came to the table and said, "Do you mind if we interrupt you? Just want to shake your hand and tell you how lucky you are to be alive. Most people in that situation would die. Most
Wow.
people panic and sink, or go, get into the negative emotions. And it's really a lesson in life, and it's certainly a lesson about our current times, that if you stay
Mhm.
positive, focused on positive outcomes, and a goal map is a great way to focus on positive outcomes, because you
Mm.
put these where you want to be, focus on getting to where you want to be, focus on not just survival but thriving and getting out of this in a very, very positive way. If you can use that uh, with our current situation, use my
Mhm.
analogy of being lost at sea, literally,
Yeah.
then be focused, be positive, and you'll be amazed at the results that come out of it. And I'm here today because of that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. That must have been so scary to be like, to just be like stranded in the sea. And like, yeah, I suppose, as you say, if you had gone down that road of panic, your arms would have been everywhere, and like goodness knows what could have happened.
Yeah. So it's and it really
Yeah.
is a okay. So I've got other experiences, lots of experiences actually through my life, that I can focus on, of this power of positivity. And
Yeah.
many of people have called me Mr. Positive. So it's I know it's one of my real values. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that I value in my life, and I share with other people, and I believe
Mm-hmm.
that brings positive results.
Yeah. Do you have actually maybe like as kind of a smaller um, example of how you practice that, or of how someone could practice the power of positivity in their day, whereas like it doesn't have to be in those life and death life and death extremes, where it can
Yeah.
just be in their everyday life. Do you have some examples there?
Yeah, so that's the big one, but the
Yeah.
big one to highlight. I mean, it's sort of a real feature, and but Yes, I think in every single day. So in everything we do, and if you look around yourself and you think about people in your life who are positive and
Mm-hmm.
what they have in their life, and those who are negative, and we tend to attract that same power. So people who are negative and have negative thoughts about things tend to get negative results, and people who are positive tend to get positive results. So that doesn't mean that everything in my life is positive. Of course, lots of negatives happen. But as a smaller example, if you like, I mean, I've been on holiday lots of times. I've had some real negative things happen to me, but
Mm-hmm.
I've always had incredible experiences on my holidays because I've never stayed focused on the negatives. One of the best trips I ever had was when I went with a Russian friend of mine. I lived in Moscow. I lived 11 years in Moscow, Russia. And I went from Moscow to Kiev. And we arrived, we went on the train, we got off the train and we went on the underground in Kiev to get to our hotel. And I got pickpocketed. I had my wallet taken out of my pocket with all my
Mm-hmm.
money and credit cards.
Wow.
Now, it was the start of a 4-day trip that ended up being actually, sorry, 36 hours, 3 days we were there.
Mm-hmm.
Friday, we came back on Sunday. It was the best 3 days, 2.5 days. We had such a laugh and so much fun
Wow.
because I canceled my cards and said, okay, that's gone. Nothing I
Mm-hmm.
can do about it. And I am
Yeah.
here and I'm going to enjoy my trip, and had a brilliant time. And,
Wow.
my friend Ray said as well that, he couldn't believe it, how I was able to shift my focus from something that could have ruined it. He said most people would have just got back on the next train and gone back to Moscow because, but, we didn't. He sponsored me. He paid for things, was able to do. But we were very frugal on what we had because we didn't have so much money to share between the two of us. But we
Mm-hmm.
had an incredible time, and
Yeah.
it's all about getting out of that. Don't focus on something negative that's happened.
Mm,
Focus on positive. I was there to have a good time, so have a good time. And
yeah.
yes, something bad had happened, but it had happened. I couldn't do anything about it. I needed to move on. So I
Mm,
would always say to people, whatever happens in your life, when bad things are going to come along, you can't avoid that. Negative stuff's going to happen. You can't avoid that. Don't focus on it, because if you do, you'll attract more negativity and you'll be actually open to more negativity. Focus on the
yeah.
positives, redirect what you're thinking about, redirect where you are and what you want. And
Mm,
you'll be amazed at how it changes everything around you and changes your experience. So it goes back to this whole illusion. Create the positive illusion. Don't stay with the negative illusion, because it is all just an illusion.
mm. Yeah, and it's as you say, what it sounds like, it's not really like what happens to you, it's how you choose to respond to what happens to you.
Yep. So this is
Yeah.
what, when I say an illusion, I mean, it is happening in front of you.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I said, the card trick, it is actually happening, but the illusion is how you perceive what's happening.
Mm,
I guarantee if you absolutely know the card trick, or you know the tricks, you can watch it and you sort of, oh, I know how that's going on. I watch a lot of things with Danny, my son, on
yeah.
YouTube, when they talk about how all the tricks, and they show you how it all works, and it's almost a bit disappointing, because you sort of think, oh well, I didn't really want to know all that because it was fun watching
Mm,
it, and this is life.
yeah.
It's all going on at the same time. So um, accept what you want to see, know what you want to get, which is the positives, and then you'll enjoy life, and just
Mm.
focus on that.
Yeah, I think it really actually reminds me of what Tony Robbins talks about. Is like, how do you create your state of mind, and it's what are you choosing to focus on? What does it mean? And I think the third one is that what is your uh, physiology? I think I'm pretty sure that's the three things that create your state. And it sounds like you use those tools.
Yeah. So physiology,
Yeah,
as Tony teaches us, everyone,
yeah,
doesn't matter where you are in the world, we have the same physiology. If we're sad, we're down, and if we're
yeah.
happy, we're up. Chest comes out, we breathe more. So
Mm,
create. So having a positive mindset means that you tend to be in a positive state, and you're in a positive
mm,
physiology, and this means that you're going to get more positive things happening for you.
yeah.
If you're negative, down and focused, because when we pick up, our physiology follows, and actually we can change our state by changing our physiology. We can
Mm,
change our state by thinking differently. we can do all of these, use these tools, and as Tony says, we can do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
We can just, if you have the right mindset, you can change everything just by changing taking these tools and change your physiology, change what you're thinking, what you're focusing on, and
Mm.
create something different. And I'm not saying it's always going to work. I
Yeah.
mean, terrible things do happen, and you can't change what's going on, but you can change how you react to them.
Mm.
And we've seen this, all over the world. We've seen people who've unfortunately lost limbs and still climbed Mount Everest. They
Yeah.
found a way, and I've got all my limbs and I've been healthy all my life pretty well, and I've never
Mm.
climbed Mount Everest because
Yeah.
I never had the mindset and the willpower and the decision to go and do that.
Mm.
But I know, it's a bit like you were saying about setting tasks and, is it too big? If I
Mm.
really set out to climb Mount Everest, even at my age, I could still probably do it. It would be a lot of work. I'd
Yeah.
have to do
Yeah.
a lot of things to get myself into that, able to do it and join with a lot of people and everything. But if that was a real goal, if I really wanted to do that, I could do
Mm.
it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Fantastic. So, if people want to find out more about you and more about like how they can create their own goal map, where is the best way to find you?
Okay, so probably the best place to find me is on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
I'm there and I'm quite active there. So you can see my
Okay.
name at the bottom, Stephen Karbaron, and I think you'll probably share my
Yeah, I'm
LinkedIn.
gonna put all the
You
links.
can
Yeah.
share my LinkedIn link. People can contact me there and send me messages there. They
Mm.
can also go on the other thing that I've given you a link to share is my goal mapping coaching page. They can go on there, read a little bit about me, and then sign up through that page into the goal mapping site. There is no charge. You can go onto the goal mapping site and create your own goal map. You can use the tips that I've given you. There's lots of videos on there that tell you and explain how to do it. So people can go on there and create a free goal map and download it and have that themselves. It's a gift from Brian and all of the people who work with goal mapping and work with Brian. We gift this to people so that they can do it themselves. But obviously, if they would like some help with it, being coached to do something always gets better results. So
Yeah.
if they would
Yeah.
like some help, they
Mm.
can contact me, drop me a line, and I will be happy to discuss it and see how I can help them and take it to the next level.
Fantastic. This has been really, really great, Stephen. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this and all the experience that you've shared. I'm sure it will inspire people to to set some goals.
Great. And actually, exactly that. The more people that set positive goals and start getting positive results, we will see a shift in the whole uh, consciousness of the world, because I really do believe in that. If people at the moment, we're in a very, very, we're being drilled with so much negativity that people are very negative because of it. There's so much negativity around. So it's really great that people can shift that and say, okay, now's the time, because now is the time. There is no better time than now to change their mindset, start having positive thoughts, start creating positivity around them, start
Mm.
setting goals that take them in the right direction, and start getting them out of this situation that we're in and these challenging times that we're in. And we'll start seeing a shift in the results that we're getting. And when people see that, then that will amplify. We'll see it grow and grow and grow. So I believe that this is such an important time for people to take control of what they can be in control of. So don't focus on what you
Yeah.
can't control, focus on what you can control. And when you start doing that and taking these, as you said, tiny first steps, baby steps, do it in little chunk sizes that you can do, the results will be amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Stephen. This has been really, really great. Um, and yeah, I look forward to having you back on as well, because I know there's like a few other topics we want to talk about, like conscious capitalism and all this stuff. You want to give us just a tiny taster of that?
Yeah,
Of
so we didn't really touch on my business and everything else
yeah,
that I've done in my life. So we focused on, so I'd love to come
yeah,
back and talk about that. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm part of the conscious capitalism movement in Europe, and it's a great, it's all about bringing businesses into a more purpose-driven way of doing business. It focuses
Mhm.
on there's four tenets, which is finding your purpose and having the company and the people within the company understanding and living the purpose, building a conscious culture so that people within the company are understanding what the company is all about and enjoying working there, having a conscious leadership so that the leaders actually start to become more conscious and aware of what they're doing, sharing their values, etc. And most importantly, stakeholder orientation. So looking after all stakeholders. So not just your shareholders, but your employees, your clients, the people related to your employees and clients, your environment, your local community, the bigger community that is the world, looking out for sustainability, making sure that we will have a planet, or not really a planet, but we'll have a planet that's inhabitable for us. Because
Yeah.
one of the things I'm pretty sure of is we will not destroy the earth, but we might make it uninhabitable for ourselves. And that's
Yeah.
something we really have to focus on. So a lot of people talk about climate change and about sustainability and talk about, oh, we're going to destroy the planet. We're actually not going to destroy the planet.
Yeah.
We're going to destroy the human race, because the planet, just like it carried on after the dinosaurs, will carry on after us. And if we want to live here for a long, long time, we really need to think about making sure that we don't destroy all the goodness that nature has and gives to us, so that we can continue living here for generations and generations on.
Absolutely. I completely agree. That's been great. Thank you so much, Stephen. And I really uh, uh, look forward to whenever we can dive deep into that when you come on next time. So,
Brilliant.
um, thank you so much for uh, listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, and if you think that Stephen's journey could inspire someone, please make sure you share it and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.